The rain was a relentless drum against the sprawling glass of the penthouse, each drop a tiny hammer blow against the silence. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of expensive cigars, old money, and something new, something metallic. Anya moved through the opulent living room, a phantom in the muted dawn, her soft claws erasing the fingerprints of a night she was never meant to witness. Every movement was precise, practiced, a dance of efficiency honed over years. She was a shadow, seen but never truly observed, a part of the mansion's vast, breathing machinery. Her hands, dark and elegant against the pale linen, wiped away a smudge on a mahogany table when her gaze snagged, not on a dust mote, but on a streak of crimson, stark against the pristine white marble of the fireplace. It was fresh, still glistening. Her heart, a steady, disciplined drum, picked up an erratic beat. This wasn't the stain of spilled wine. This was a deeper, more profound hue. Anya's breath caught, a silent gasp swallowed by the vastness of the room. She followed the trail, a thin, winding path of dread, until it led her to the study. The door, usually ajar, was now slightly ajar. A sliver of light, almost a warning, escaped. Hesitation, a foreign concept to her well-oiled routine, flickered, but curiosity, a dangerous twin, was stronger. She pushed the door open a fraction more. The sight that greeted her solidified the cold dread in her stomach. A man, unknown to her, lay sprawled on the Persian rug, his eyes wide and unseeing, a dark crimson blossoming on his expensive suit. And standing over him, impeccably dressed even at this ungodly hour, was Mr. Kim. Kim Hyun-woo. The name alone was a whispered legend in the city's underbelly, a name that commanded fear and absolute obedience. He was a man carved from ice and steel, his presence a perpetual chill in the air, even in the warmth of his own home. His face, usually a mask of stoic indifference, was now etched with a grim satisfaction, a chilling finality. In his hand, a silenced pistol, its barrel still faintly smoking. Anya froze, her hand still on the doorknob. She was a statue, a breath held captive in her lungs, her mind screaming for flight, for something deeper, something ancient within her, rooted her to the spot. She met his gaze, not with fear, but with a strange, unnerving calm that belied the terror coiling in her gut. She had seen death before, in other lives, other places, but never like this. Not so close, not so personal, not with the killer's eyes fixed on her. His eyes narrowed, dissecting her, searching for the telltale signs of panic, of a mind about to unravel. He saw nothing but a quiet defiance, a steady strength that intrigued him. He raised the pistol, its cold steel glinting in the dim light. Time stretched, thin and brittle. This was it, she thought. This was how it ended. Not in a blaze of glory, not in a desperate struggle, but in the quiet, sterile silence of a rich man's study at the hands of a monster. But then, a flicker, a pause. The hand holding the gun lowered, slowly, deliberately. He looked at her, truly looked at her for a long, agonizing moment. His gaze was a physical weight, pressing down on her, stripping away her defenses, revealing the hidden depths of her soul. He was searching for something, a tell, a weakness, a reason to pull the trigger. He found none. Instead, he found a mirror, reflecting a stillness that was almost his own. A flicker of something, curiosity perhaps, or a grudging respect crossed his face. He holstered the pistol, the click a deafening sound in the silence. "Clean it," he said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble that sent shivers down her spine. It wasn't a question. It was an order, delivered with the chilling certainty of a man who rarely had his will questioned. And forget what you saw. He turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the doorway, the scent of blood and expensive cigars clinging to the air, a silent witness to a life extinguished and a new, perilous chapter begun. The rain outside continued its relentless drumming, washing away nothing. The days that followed were an exercise in a chilling new normal. Anya returned to her duties, her movements as fluid and precise as ever. She cleaned, she cooked, she moved through the mansion like a ghost, her presence barely registered by the other staff, who were accustomed to her quiet efficiency. But everything had changed. The air was now thick with unspoken words, with the weight of shared secrets. Kim Hyun-woo was a constant, formidable presence. He moved through his lavish home with the effortless grace of a predator, his dark suits and tailored shirts a stark contrast to the opulent surroundings. He never acknowledged her directly, not in the way one would acknowledge a maid. Yet she felt his eyes on her, a phantom touch that prickled her skin. Sometimes she would catch him observing her from a distance, a fleeting glimpse of his intense gaze before he would turn away, his face a perfect, unreadable mask. Anya, in turn, found herself observing him. It was an involuntary act, a survival instinct sharpened by her past. She noticed the subtle shifts in his demeanor, the way his jaw would clench when a phone call went south, the way his eyes would harden when a subordinate displeased him. She saw the flashes of ruthless intelligence, the calculating mind constantly at work, always several steps ahead. He was a man utterly in control, a master of his domain. Yet beneath the icy facade, she sensed a deep well of something else, something carefully guarded, something wounded. The mansion itself became a character in their silent drama. Its vast corridors and echoing rooms were the stage for their undeclared war of wills. She learned its rhythms, its hidden passages, the subtle hum of its security systems. She learned the schedules of the guards, the blind spots in the surveillance. She learned the habits of Kim Hyun-woo, the hours he kept, the rituals he observed, the rare moments when his guard seemed to slip, if only for a fraction of a second. One evening, as she tidied his study, the room where the nightmare had begun, her gaze fell upon a framed photograph on his desk. It was an old picture, faded with time, showing a younger Kim Hyun-woo, a rare, almost gentle smile on his face, standing beside an older woman, his mother, perhaps. It was a jarring image, a glimpse into a humanity she had not thought him capable of possessing. For a moment, the fearsome Mafia boss receded, replaced by a vulnerable son. But then the door creaked open, and he stood there, his presence filling the doorway, his eyes sweeping over her, over the photograph. She quickly returned to her task, her heart a frantic bird in her chest. He didn't speak, but the silence was heavier than any words. He watched her, a long, scrutinizing gaze that seemed to pierce through her calm exterior. Anya continued to dust, her movements unwavering, her breath steady. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, almost a whisper, yet laced with an undeniable steel. "You're not afraid of me, are you, Anya?" Her hand paused, just for a moment, on the polished wood. She turned, meeting his gaze directly. "Fear is a luxury I cannot afford, Mr. Kim." A flicker of something, surprise perhaps, or grudging admiration crossed his face. He took a step into the room, his eyes never leaving hers. "And what luxury can you afford, Maid?" "My peace of mind, and my life." A slow, humorless smile played on his lips, a dangerous glint in his dark eyes. "You bargain with the devil, Anya." "The devil knows the value of a silent witness," she countered, her gaze unwavering. He studied her for another long moment, his head tilted slightly, as if attempting to decipher a complex riddle. The tension in the room was palpable, a suffocating force that threatened to crush them both. He seemed to be weighing her words, her composure, the quiet strength that emanated from her. Then he turned away, dismissing her with a subtle flick of his hand. "Continue your duties." The dismissal was clear, yet the encounter had shifted something between them. A line had been crossed, an unspoken understanding forged. He had acknowledged her, not as a servant, but as something more, something dangerous, something intriguing. And Anya, in turn, had acknowledged the silent power dynamic, accepting the perilous game they were now playing. The maid who saw too much was no longer just a witness. She was now a player, whether she wanted to be or not. And deep within her, a dormant instinct, a hidden past began to stir, slowly, dangerously. The silent dance between Anya and Kim Hyun-woo intensified, morphing into a complex psychological ballet. Every interaction, however brief, was laden with unspoken meanings, every glance a coded message. Anya maintained her veneer of an efficient, unshakable maid, but beneath the surface, her senses were heightened. She listened, she watched, she absorbed every detail of the Kim empire that unfolded within the mansion's walls. She began to notice patterns, the agitated whispers of lieutenants in hushed tones, the increased security patrols around the perimeter, the frequent late-night visitors whose faces were always grim. There was an undercurrent of tension rippling through the organization, a sense of impending conflict. Kim Hyun-woo, despite his unwavering composure, showed subtle signs of strain. The lines around his eyes seemed deeper, his moments of stillness more profound, almost contemplative. He was a general preparing for war. One afternoon, while cleaning the study, Anya found a discarded newspaper on his desk. It was open to an article detailing the sudden and brutal downfall of a rival syndicate. The headlines screamed of betrayals, power struggles, and a new dominant force emerging in the city's criminal underworld. As she carefully folded the paper, her eyes caught a small, almost imperceptible detail in the margin of the article, a faint circled initial, an S. It meant nothing to her, yet she tucked it away in her mental archives. Later that week, she was tasked with cleaning a rarely used guest suite. Inside, she found a stack of old files, bound with string, tucked away in a dusty drawer. Curiosity, that dangerous companion, compelled her. She knew the risks, but the pull of the unknown was too strong. The files were in Korean, but her proficiency in several languages, a relic of her hidden past, allowed her to decipher them. They weren't about financial dealings or illegal operations. They were family records, old photographs, and news clippings detailing the tragic demise of Kim Hyun-woo's family almost 2 decades ago. A fire, ruled accidental, that had claimed his parents and younger sister. A young Hyun-woo, grim-faced, stared out from a grainy newspaper photo. A cold certainty settled Anya's stomach. The accidental fire, the ruthless ambition of a young man, the quiet, hidden pain she sometimes glimpsed in his eyes. It wasn't just about power for Kim Hyun-woo. It was about something far deeper, far more personal. Revenge, perhaps, or a desperate need to control everything around him to prevent another such tragedy. As she meticulously replaced the files, a faint scent caught her attention, a subtle, distinctive cologne that wasn't Kim Hyun-woo's. It was the same scent she had noticed on one of his most trusted lieutenants, a man named Min-jun, a seemingly loyal and efficient enforcer. A sliver of doubt, cold and sharp, began to form in her mind. Anya's true nature, long suppressed, began to assert itself. Her years of training, her instincts for observation, analysis, and survival sharpened. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was an intelligence operative in plain sight. She started charting the comings and goings of Min-jun, noting his phone calls, his quiet meetings, the subtle shifts in his body language around Kim Hyun-woo. There was a discord, a false note in his loyalty. One rainy evening, Anya was walking through a dimly lit corridor when she overheard a hushed conversation coming from behind a closed door. Min-jun's voice, low and urgent, followed by another, unfamiliar male voice. She paused, pressing herself against the cool stone wall, her breath shallow. "The package is secured," Min-jun hissed. "He suspects nothing. Our timeline remains." And the girl, the maid, she's seen too much. She's a loose end. Anya's blood ran cold. They were talking about her. The mention of the package and timeline solidified her growing suspicions. This was not a simple betrayal for power. There was a larger game at play, and she was an unwitting pawn. Min-jun scoffed. "She's a ghost, barely human. She won't be a problem." The other voice chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "Ghosts can come back to haunt you, Min-jun, especially when they've seen the dead." Anya slipped away silently, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She had to be careful. Min-jun was a snake in the grass, and she was in the viper's nest. The initial S in the newspaper, the mysterious package, the family tragedy, All the pieces, disparate and unconnected, began to coalesce into a terrifying picture. Kim Hyun-woo was not just being targeted by rivals, he was being systematically undermined from within, and his past was intricately linked to the present danger. And now she, the silent observer, was an explicit target. The game had changed. The air in the mansion crackled with an almost unbearable tension. The subtle shifts Anya had observed in Kim Hyun-woo became more pronounced. He spent long hours in his office, the glow of his computer screen a solitary beacon in the darkness. His moods were colder, his temper shorter. The shadow of danger grew longer with each passing day. Anya, armed with her dangerous knowledge, moved with even greater caution. Every interaction with Min-jun was a calculated performance of feigned ignorance. She watched him, a hawk observing its prey, noting the casual way he'd subtly redirect conversations, the way his eyes would dart around, assessing the room, always assessing. His loyalty, once perceived, was now a transparent lie. Her own past, a carefully constructed fortress, began to crumble under the weight of the present threat. She found herself recalling fragments, flashes of another life, where precision and quick thinking meant the difference between life and death. Skills she had buried deep within, hoping never to unearth them, now whispered to her in the quiet hours. One morning, she found Kim Hyun-woo in the sprawling library, surrounded by ancient tomes and modern financial reports. He was staring out the panoramic window at the rain-swept cityscape, his posture rigid, his face a mask of deep thought. He looked weary, a human vulnerability she rarely saw. Without turning, he spoke, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. "You have a knack for being in the right place at the wrong time, Anya." I paused, a stack of freshly laundered linens in my arms. "Or the wrong place at the right time, Mr. Kim." He turned then, his eyes, dark and intense, fixing on me. There was a challenge in his gaze, a probing question. "And which is it for you?" I replied. "That depends on the outcome," I replied, my voice calm, devoid of fear. He held her gaze for a long moment, a silent battle of wills playing out between them. He was searching, always searching, for an angle, a weakness, but Anya's carefully constructed defenses were impenetrable. "You observe much," he finally stated, a hint of something unreadable in his tone. "What do you see?" Anya considered her words carefully. This was a test, a dangerous gamble. "I see a man under pressure, Mr. Kim, and shadows where there should be light." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Shadows are a part of every empire, Anya. Some are merely longer than others." "Some shadows are cast by traitors," Anya said, her voice dropping to a whisper, barely audible above the drumming rain. His eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. The air crackled with a sudden, explosive energy. He took a slow step towards her, his presence utterly dominating the space. He could smell the faint scent of his expensive cologne, the underlying sharpness of his own unique scent. He was so close, she could feel the heat radiating from him. "Be careful, Anya," he warned, his voice a low, dangerous growl that vibrated through her. "Such observations can be fatal, and ignoring them can be more so," she retorted, her gaze unflinching. A strange expression crossed his face then, a mixture of frustration, curiosity, and something akin to a reluctant respect. He was testing her, pushing her, trying to break her composure, and she was meeting him stride for stride. He took a step back, breaking the intense proximity. "You speak with unusual confidence for someone in your position," he said. "My position affords me a unique perspective," she said, finally allowing a small, almost imperceptible smile to touch her lips. "I see the dust no one else notices, Mr. Kim, and sometimes the dirt hidden beneath the rug." He watched her for another long moment, a flicker of something new in his dark eyes. Not just suspicion, but a burgeoning fascination. The silent dance was evolving, transforming into something far more dangerous, far more intimate. Anya had thrown down a gauntlet, subtly accusing, hinting at knowledge she shouldn't possess, and Kim Hyun-woo, the ruthless and intelligent predator, was now intrigued, and perhaps, just perhaps, beginning to trust the silent maid who saw everything. The unraveling thread was not just of loyalty within his organization, it was also the delicate thread of their own carefully maintained distance, slowly, inexorably, beginning to fray. The unspoken tension between Anya and Kim Hyun-woo reached a new crescendo after their confrontation in the library. He began to seek her out, not overtly, but through subtle shifts in his routine. He would find excuses to be in the same room, his eyes following her movements, assessing, probing. He was like a hawk circling its prey, but the prey was no longer running, it was standing its ground, meeting his gaze with an unnerving calm. One evening, a violent thunderstorm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil within the mansion. The power flickered, plunging parts of the house into momentary darkness before the generators kicked in. In the chaos, Anya was in the main hall, tending to a spilled drink. Kim Hyun-woo emerged from his office, his face grim, illuminated by the emergency lights. "The internal network is compromised," he announced, his voice devoid of emotion, yet carrying an undercurrent of lethal fury. "Someone has found a way in." Anya's mind raced. The S, Min-jun, the package, this was an attack from within. She looked at Kim Hyun-woo, seeing the weight of the betrayal in his stoic expression. "Do you trust all your eyes, Mr. Kim?" she asked, her voice low, almost a whisper, but piercing the charged silence. He turned to her, his dark eyes like obsidian. "Elaborate." "Some eyes see what they are paid to see," she replied, her gaze steady. "Others see only what they are allowed to see, but some see everything." He stepped closer, his presence commanding. "And which are your eyes, Anya?" "The ones that notice the slight tremor in a hand when a man lies, the ones that recognize a cologne that doesn't belong, the ones that see a shadow moving where it shouldn't." He studied her, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he reached out, his hand gently but firmly taking her arm. It was the first physical contact between them, a jolt of electricity that coursed through her. There was no aggression, only a profound, desperate need for answers. "Tell me what you know," his voice demanded, a low, dangerous rumble. Anya hesitated for a fraction of a second. This was the moment, the point of no return. She could reveal everything, or she could retreat into her silence. But instinct, honed by years of survival, told her that silence now would be a death sentence for them both. "Your internal network is compromised not by an external enemy, but by one of your own, Min-jun. He's been meeting with an unknown party. They spoke of a package and a timeline, and they spoke of me." Kim Hyun-woo's grip tightened on her arm, not painfully, but with an intensity that promised retribution. His eyes hardened to chips of ice. "Min-jun. I cultivated him." His voice was laced with a chilling disbelief. "Why?" "Ye mentioned your family," Hyun-woo continued, her gaze unwavering despite the danger shimmering in his eyes. "The fire. He spoke of it as leverage, a ghost from your past, resurrected to haunt you." The mention of the fire, his deepest wound, was like a physical blow. His face contorted, a fleeting glimpse of raw pain and savage fury. For a moment, the cold, calculating Mafia boss dissolved, replaced by a man consumed by grief and vengeance. Then the mask slammed back into place, even colder, even more lethal than before. He released her arm, his hand balling into a fist at his side. "The S," he murmured, almost to himself. "Sejun, Min-jun's older brother. I had him eliminated years ago for attempting to betray my father. He must have a son. This is a vendetta." Anya watched him, a silent observer of his unraveling. The pieces were falling into place, a decades-old blood feud, fueled by revenge, now threatening to consume everything. They intend to dismantle your empire from within, using your own people, your own vulnerabilities. The network breach is a diversion. They're preparing for a more direct strike. Kim Hyun-woo turned to her fully, his expression a complex mix of surprise, betrayal, and a dawning understanding. You have been tracking him. You've been investigating. It's a habit, she said, a faint, almost defiant hint of a smile touching her lips. I see too much, Mr. Kim, and when I see a threat, I learn about it. A long silence stretched between them, punctuated by the relentless drumming of the rain. He looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time, not as a maid, but as an equal, a formidable presence with a dangerous mind. He saw the quiet intelligence, the unwavering resolve, the hidden strength that pulsed beneath her calm exterior. You are not who you seem, Anya, he finally stated, a dark curiosity in his voice. Neither are you, Mr. Kim, she countered, meeting his gaze without a hint of fear. A flicker of something akin to admiration, reluctant yet undeniable, crossed his face. He extended his hand, not in an offer of truce, but in a silent, unspoken demand for partnership. Help me. Anya looked at his outstretched hand, then into his eyes. This was not just a request for help, it was an invitation into his dangerous world, a binding pact forged in betrayal and blood. He saw the ruthlessness, yes, but also a desperate need, a flicker of humanity beneath the icy exterior. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out and took his hand. His grip was firm, electric. A dangerous alliance had been forged, not between master and servant, but between two formidable, equally guarded individuals, united against a common deadly enemy. The game had not just changed, it had escalated into a desperate fight for survival for both of them. The mansion transformed from a silent, gilded cage into a strategic command center. Kim Hyun-woo, usually a solitary figure, now included Anya in his inner circle, a fact that both baffled and secretly angered his remaining loyal lieutenants. They saw her as a maid, an outsider, but he saw her as an asset, a confidant, a weapon. Their collaboration was intense, fueled by urgency and the ever-present threat of betrayal. Anya, with her uncanny ability to observe and deduce, became his eyes and ears where his own had failed. She helped him piece together Min-jun's intricate web of deceit, identifying the weak points in his plan, the hidden connections to the mysterious Si-joon's son. Her insights were sharp, precise, often surprising him with their depth. During these long, late-night sessions in his study, the professional distance between them began to erode. He saw the fierce intelligence behind her calm demeanor, the quickness of her mind, the unwavering logic in her analysis. He witnessed her courage firsthand, her willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, even to him. She, in turn, saw glimpses of the man beneath the impenetrable armor. He was still ruthless, still utterly unforgiving, but she also saw his moments of quiet reflection, the flicker of pain in his eyes when the ghost of his family was evoked. She saw the immense burden of leadership, the isolation of power. He was not just a monster, he was a man forged in fire, driven by a profound, primal need for control and justice for his past. One evening, while poring over encrypted communications, a sudden wave of exhaustion washed over Anya. She leaned back, rubbing her temples, a rare moment of vulnerability. Kim Hyun-woo, who had been pacing, paused, observing her. "You carry a heavy load, Anya," he said, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. She met his gaze, a weary honesty in her eyes. "Some loads are heavier than others, Mr. Kim." He walked to her, pulling up a chair opposite her at the large mahogany desk. He looked at her, not with his usual scrutiny, but with a surprising gentleness. "You said fear was a luxury you couldn't afford. What made you so resilient?" Anya hesitated. Her past was a locked vault, sealed tight, but with him, in this moment of shared vulnerability, the lock felt a little less secure. "Life has a way of stripping away luxuries," she finally said, her voice quiet. "I learned early that survival is a choice, and sometimes the only choice you have left." He nodded slowly, a profound understanding in his eyes. "I know that choice." A comfortable silence settled between them, a truce in their psychological war. In that quiet moment, something shifted. It wasn't just a strategic alliance, it was a connection, born from shared trauma and a dangerous, undeniable respect. The air between them, once thick with tension, now hummed with a different kind of electricity, a subtle magnetism. "The attack is imminent," Kim Hyun-woo finally stated, breaking the silence, his voice regaining its usual steel. "Min-jun has moved his pawns into position. They plan to hit the distribution hub and then the manor itself, all simultaneously in the chaos of the city's annual festival." "A distraction," Anya murmured. "They'll use the crowds as cover. And Sejong's son, what is his name?" "Ji-hoon," Kim Hyun-woo replied, his voice laced with venom. "He wants to burn everything I've built, just as my family was burned." He looked at her, his eyes blazing with a cold fire. "But he will not succeed, not while I still breathe, and not while I have you." The last word hung in the air, a loaded statement. It wasn't a compliment, not a declaration of affection, but an acknowledgement of her vital importance, a possessive claim. Anya felt a tremor run through her, a mixture of fear and something else, something dangerously close to exhilaration. She was no longer just a maid. She was his shield, his sword, his confidant. And in this dangerous partnership, the rigid boundaries of their worlds were blurring, threatening to merge in a way neither of them had anticipated. The armor around Kim Hyun-woo was cracking, and beneath it, a complex, volatile man was beginning to emerge, drawing her into his dark, compelling orbit. The night of the festival arrived, a vibrant tapestry of lights and sounds woven across the city. Below, the streets pulsed with life, oblivious to the deadly game about to unfold. Inside the mansion, a different kind of tension hummed, taut and unforgiving. Kim Hyun-woo had mobilized his loyalists, reinforcing defenses, preparing for the coordinated assault Anya had predicted. Yet a gnawing unease persisted. They were still missing a crucial piece of the puzzle, Ji-hoon's exact plan, the final strike. Anya, dressed in her maid's uniform, moved through the mansion, her senses on high alert. Her calm exterior was a mask, her mind racing, connecting the dots, searching for the missing link. She found Kim Hyun-woo in his war room, a map of the city spread across the table, marked with potential targets and troop movements. He looked up as she entered, his eyes intense, betraying the immense pressure he was under. "Something's still off," he stated, his voice low and frustrated. "Min-jun is too confident. Ji-hoon is too quiet. This feels like a feint within a feint." "He knows we know," Anya said, stepping closer to the map. "Min-jun has surely reported that you're aware of the betrayal. He wouldn't proceed with the obvious." "Then what is the obvious they want us to focus on?" he mused, tracing a finger across the map. Suddenly, a memory resurfaced in Anya's mind, sharp and clear. The Olds family files, the detailed accounts of the fire that claimed his family. And then a chilling connection, the annual festival. The fire had occurred during a similar citywide celebration 2 decades ago. The distraction, the chaos, the perfect cover. It wasn't just a coincidence, it was a pattern. "He's not after your empire, Mr. Kim," Anya said, her voice barely a whisper, but laced with a terrible certainty. "He wants you, personally. He wants to finish what he believes his father started. He wants to burn you." Kim Hyun-woo's head snapped up, his eyes wide with a dawning horror. "The old family estate! It's been renovated into a memorial museum. Empty, unguarded, a symbol, Anya finished, the pieces clicking into place with a terrifying finality. He'll use the festival's fireworks to cover the explosion. He wants to destroy the last physical link to your family, to erase your past and take you with it. A new, brutal clarity dawned on Kim Hyun-woo's face. The betrayal was deeper, more personal than he had imagined. It wasn't just about power, it was about annihilation. He looked at Anya, a sudden, fierce gratitude in his eyes. "We move now," he commanded, his voice sharp and decisive, snapping out orders to his men. "Secure the memorial, find Ji-hun and Min-jun." As his men scrambled, preparing for the desperate race against time, Kim Hyun-woo grabbed his coat, then paused, turning back to Anya. His gaze was intense, a silent question in his eyes. "You're coming with me," he stated, not a request, but a command. Anya met his gaze. She knew the danger, knew the risk, but something deeper, an undeniable pull urged her forward. "I wouldn't have it any other way," her voice said, steady. They moved through the mansion, the air thick with adrenaline. As they reached the grand entrance, a sudden blinding flash erupted from the main security console. Alarms blared, red lights pulsed, and the heavy security doors began to slowly grind shut, trapping them inside. Min-jun's face appeared on a nearby monitor, twisted into a triumphant sneer. "Surprise, Hyun-woo. Did you truly think your little maid could outsmart me? I knew she was whispering in your ear. I knew you'd move your forces to the memorial. You've fallen right into my trap." Kim Hyun-woo's face hardened into a mask of pure fury. "You fool. Ji-hun will kill you the moment he has what he wants." "He promised me my rightful place," Min-jun screamed, his face contorting with rage. "You stole everything from my family. Now I'll watch your empire crumble and your past burn." A new, cold, detached voice cut through Min-jun's rant. "And you, Min-jun, will be standing beside him when it does." Ji-hun appeared on the screen, a ghost of his father's vengeful eyes. "The memorial is merely a decoy for your loyalists. The real fireworks are here, Hyun-woo, right where you stand." Anya's blood ran cold. The mansion. It was a trap, a deadly, elaborate trap designed to ensnare Kim Hyun-woo and his remaining forces. Ji-hun didn't want to destroy the past. He wanted to destroy the present and the future. The sound of shattering glass echoed from the upper floors. Gunfire erupted, close and terrifying. Suddenly, the illusion of safety shattered. Min-jun hadn't just compromised the network. He'd infiltrated the manor with his own strike team, using the security breach as a simultaneous attack. Kim Hyun-woo grabbed Anya, pushing her behind him, shielding him with his body as bullets ripped through the marble pillars around them. "Stay behind me," he barked, drawing a concealed weapon. The fight had come to them, within the very walls that had once provided such formidable protection. As the chaos erupted around them, Anya felt a strange sense of clarity. Her past, the skills she had buried so deep, were now screaming to be unleashed. She was no longer just the maid who saw too much. She was a warrior, a survivor, and she would not let this man, this dangerous, complex man who had slowly, unexpectedly carved a place in her guarded heart, fall. Chaos erupted in the mansion. Gunfire echoed through the halls, shattering glass and scattering splinters of marble. Kim Hyun-woo fought with a brutal efficiency, a whirlwind of calculated violence. He was a force of nature, his movements precise, deadly. Anya, pressed against a cold marble pillar, watched him, a strange mix of fear and admiration coursing through her. But Min-jun's forces were numerous, and they knew the mansion's layout, having been given blueprints. They swarmed, pushing Kim Hyun-woo and his dwindling loyalists back, further into the heart of the building. Anya realized they were being herded, guided towards a specific location. "They're pushing us to the vault," she whispered, her voice urgent, grabbing Kim Hyun-woo's arm during a brief lull in the firing. "He wants to corner you, trap you inside." Kim Hyun-woo cursed, a dark look of realization on his face. The vault, a secure bunker, was a trap in itself once sealed from the outside. "Then we don't go to the vault," he growled, pulling her close, shielding her as he fired a precise shot, taking down an advancing attacker. "We go through them." They fought their way through the opulent corridors, a desperate dance of survival. Anya, despite her lack of overt combat training, moved with an instinctive grace, dodging bullets, anticipating movements, her mind a step ahead. She would grab discarded weapons, pass them to Kim Hyun-woo, point out blind spots, her eyes seeing what others missed. She was his shadow, his silent guardian. During a particularly fierce exchange in the main foyer, a large antique mirror exploded, showering them with shards of glass. Kim Hyun-woo, reacting instantly, pulled Anya down, his body covering hers, shielding her from the deadly shrapnel. A searing pain shot through his shoulder as a piece of glass embedded itself deep. He grunted, but didn't flinch, pushing himself up, his grip on his weapon unwavering. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his voice strained, but his eyes scanning her for injury. "No," she replied, her heart pounding. "You are." She saw the blood blooming on his pristine white shirt. "It's nothing," he dismissed, firing another shot. "Keep moving." They reached a service stairwell, a less guarded route. As they ascended, Anya noticed a subtle metallic glint under a loose floorboard. Her past, the ingrained instincts took over. Without thinking, she kicked the board aside. Beneath it, nestled in a small compartment, was a hidden satchel. She ripped it open. Inside, alongside a silenced pistol and several magazines, was a compact, highly advanced communication device and a small, worn, leather-bound journal. The device was hers, a relic from a life she thought she had escaped. Kim Hyun-woo saw the look on her face, the sudden, stark realization. His eyes narrowed. "What is that?" But before Anya could answer, a figure emerged at the top of the stairwell. Min-jun, a cruel smile on his face, a heavy-duty assault rifle aimed directly at them. Behind him, other attackers moved in, cutting off their retreat. "Found you, Hyun-woo, and your little secret weapon. What's in the bag, Maid? Your escape route?" Kim Hyun-woo, despite his bleeding shoulder, raised his pistol. "You're a dead man, Min-jun." "Not yet," he laughed, a deranged sound, "but you will be, and she will watch. Then she'll come with me, won't she, Anya?" He looked at her, his smile widening into a sinister grin. "Or should I say, Agent K?" The revelation hung in the air, a devastating blow. Kim Hyun-woo's eyes snapped to Anya, his face a mask of shock and betrayal. Agent K. The name was whispered in certain circles, a ghost operative, a legend of a different kind, known for her unparalleled intelligence, her ability to disappear and reappear at will. Anya's carefully constructed world imploded. Min-jun hadn't just exposed her, he had weaponized her past, turning it against her, against the man she had come to protect. She could see the pain, the cold rage in Kim Hyun-woo's eyes. He had trusted her, opened himself to her, and now she saw only another layer of deception. "I can explain," she began, her voice raw, desperate. "Explain what?" Kim Hyun-woo snarled, his voice laced with a fury that cut deeper than any blade. "That you were playing me this entire time? That this was all part of your mission?" "No, my mission was to—" "Enough!" Min-jun screamed, his finger tightening on the trigger. "This little reunion is over. Say goodbye, Hyun-woo." He opened fire, a deafening roar of automatic weapons. Kim Hyun-woo, wounded and betrayed, instinctively pulled Anya to the ground, shielding her again. But this time, the gesture felt different. It was a reflex, perhaps, but also a lingering, unspoken connection. Anya, her heart aching with the weight of her exposed past, knew she had to act. Her hand went to the silenced pistol in the satchel. The true mission, the one she had been hiding, suddenly became terribly clear. But now it was complicated by a dangerous, forbidden emotion. The price of loyalty, she realized, was far higher than she had ever imagined, and she was about to pay it in blood and heartbreak. The stairwell became a kill zone. Min-jun and his men poured fire down on them, pinning Kim Hyun-woo and Anya behind a crumbling marble railing. The air was thick with gunpowder and dust. Kim Hyun-woo, despite his shoulder wound, returned fire with chilling accuracy, taking down several of Min-jun's men. But their numbers were overwhelming. Anya clutched the satchel, her mind racing. Agent K, the ghost operative. Her past was not just connected to crime, it was connected to an international intelligence agency, a covert unit dedicated to dismantling major criminal organizations from the inside. Her original mission had been to infiltrate Kim Hyun-woo's syndicate, gather intel, and eventually bring him down. But then, she had witnessed the murder. She had seen him, and everything had changed. Min-jun's voice boomed over the gunfire. "Give up, Hyun-woo, it's over, and your little Agent K has nowhere left to run." Kim Hyun-woo, his face grim, his eyes burning with a cold fury, looked at Anya. The betrayal still flickered in their depths, but beneath it, a desperate, unspoken question. "What was your mission, Anya? To kill me?" "No!" she yelled back over the din, her voice raw. "My mission was to expose a global trafficking ring that was using your organization as a conduit, a blind spot. A ring that Min-jun and Ji-hoon are now trying to control for themselves, using your downfall as their ascension." The truth, stark and brutal, hung in the air. Kim Hyun-woo's eyes widened, a dawning horror replacing the betrayal. He had been a pawn, manipulated by a larger, unseen force, a blind spot in his own carefully constructed empire. Min-jun laughed, a harsh, triumphant sound. "She lies, Hyun-woo. She's playing you. She was always going to bring you down." Anya knew she only had moments. She had to make a choice. Her hand went to the small, worn leather journal in the satchel. This was the proof, the intel, the real reason she was here. It contained encrypted data, code names, locations, and undeniable evidence of the global trafficking network, their leadership, and their deep ties to Min-jun and Ji-hoon. It was the key to exposing them all and fulfilling her mission. But if she revealed it now, it would expose her completely to Ji-hoon and his network, putting a permanent target on her back, and potentially leading to the death of Kim Hyun-woo, who was bleeding and cornered. Her original mission meant sacrificing him. But after all they had been through, after the slow burn of their dangerous, forbidden attraction, after witnessing the vulnerable man beneath the monster, she found she couldn't. "The journal!" she screamed, holding it up. "It has everything, proof of Min-jun's true allegiances and the global network he's trying to inherit." Min-jun's eyes widened in alarm. "Get her! Don't let her touch that!" The attackers shifted their focus, some rushing towards Anya, others still trying to corner Kim Hyun-woo. This was her chance, a diversion, a desperate gamble. Kim Hyun-woo, seeing her intent, despite his pain and lingering distrust, acted. He unleashed a barrage of fire, covering her as she scrambled towards a heavy, ornate display cabinet. With a desperate heave, she pushed it over, creating a temporary barricade. "Go!" she yelled to him, her eyes locking onto his, not seeing a spy, but a desperate woman making a choice. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, a recognition of the bond forged in fire, a bond that transcended betrayal and hidden agendas. Then, with a guttural roar, Kim Hyun-woo charged, a singular, deadly force, drawing the bulk of the attackers towards him. Anya, left momentarily exposed, knew what she had to do. Her hand went to the small, silenced pistol in the satchel. Her other hand clutched the journal. She could escape with the intel, complete her mission, expose the global network, and leave Kim Hyun-woo to his fate. Or she could stay, fight, and protect the man who, despite everything, had become more than just a target. Her mind replayed his face, his vulnerability, the raw human pain she had seen in his eyes. The way he had shielded her, not once, but twice. The unspoken understanding that had grown between them. A gunshot cracked near her head, showering her with plaster. Min-jun, his face contorted in a sneer, was advancing, flanked by 2 armed men. "Drop it, Agent K, or I'll kill him right in front of you." Anya looked from the journal in her hand to the sounds of Kim Hyun-woo fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. The choice was agonizing, tearing her apart. Her mission, her identity, her very purpose pitted against a dangerous, forbidden love that had bloomed in the most unlikely of places. She made her choice. It was not the one she had trained for, not the one her handlers would expect. It was a choice born of instinct, of a primal need to protect, of a heart that had finally broken through its own carefully constructed walls. She threw the journal across the room, away from Min-jun, towards a precarious ledge overlooking the ground floor. It was a calculated risk. "Catch it if you can, Min-jun!" she yelled. Min-jun hesitated, torn between capturing Anya and securing the vital intelligence. "Get the journal!" he screamed at his men, 2 of them breaking off to retrieve it. In that split second of distraction, Anya moved. With the speed and precision of her forgotten past, she raised the silenced pistol, aiming not at Min-jun, but at the structural supports holding up the chandelier above them. 3 swift, silent shots. The ancient chains groaned, then snapped. The massive crystal chandelier crashed down, directly onto Min-jun and his remaining men, burying them in a shower of glittering glass and twisted metal. The sound was deafening, a final, brutal crescendo to the chaos. The fighting in the stairwell ceased. Anya stood, amidst the dust and debris, the silenced pistol still in her hand, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She had chosen. She had saved him. But at what cost? Silence descended upon the mansion, broken only by the crackle of fallen debris and the distant wail of emergency sirens. Kim Hyun-woo, bruised and bleeding, stumbled back towards Anya, his remaining loyalists securing the perimeter. He saw the wreckage of the chandelier, the bodies of Min-jun and his men buried beneath it. He saw Anya, standing amidst it all, the pistol still in her hand, her face streaked with dirt and blood, her eyes holding a deep, profound sadness. He reached her, his gaze sweeping over her, searching for injuries. His hand, shaking slightly, reached out and gently touched her cheek, wiping away a smear of dirt. "Anya," he whispered, his voice hoarse with exhaustion and a complex mixture of relief, anger, and something else, something tender and terrifying. "Min-jun is dead," she stated, her voice devoid of emotion. "And the others." He nodded, his eyes fixed on hers. "The journal," he said, his voice hard. "The proof. You threw it." She looked towards the precarious ledge where she had tossed it. "It's damaged. The fall, the data is compromised, likely irretrievable." She had bought them time, saved his life, but at the cost of her mission and the years she had spent building this case. His hand dropped from her face, his expression hardening. The betrayal, momentarily eclipsed by the chaos, returned. "So you destroyed the evidence of your mission, the evidence of who you truly are." "I saved your life," she countered, her voice firm despite the tremor in her heart, "and stopped Ji-hoon from taking over a global network that would have dwarfed your own. You were a means to an end for them, Mr. Kim. You just didn't see it." He stared at her, the conflict raging in his eyes. He saw the truth in her words, the undeniable logic of her actions. She had not chosen her mission. She had chosen him. But the wound of her deception, of her hidden identity, was deep. "Agent K," he finally said, the name tasting like ash on his tongue. "You are a phantom, a ghost. Your agency will come for you now, for the compromised mission, for the evidence you destroyed." "I know," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. She had made her choice, and now she would face the consequences. He looked around the shattered grandeur of his mansion, at the bodies of the traitors and the loyalists, at the destruction that surrounded them. His empire had been shaken to its core. His trust had been shattered. But he was alive, and so was she. "What now, Anya?" he asked, his voice low, filled with a dangerous edge. "You saved me, but you betrayed your own. You chose to stay in my fire." She met his gaze, her eyes holding a fierce, unyielding resolve. "I made my choice, Hyun-woo. I broke my chains for you. Now I have nothing left but my freedom and my life." He stepped closer, closing the distance between them. The sirens outside grew louder, signaling the inevitable arrival of the authorities, the end of this private war. But in this moment, nothing existed but the two of them, standing in the ruins of his empire, in the midst of the ashes of her past. "Then you will stay in my fire," he declared, his voice a possessive growl, his eyes burning with an intense, dangerous light. He reached out, his hand cupping the back of her head, pulling her towards him. He kissed her then, a kiss born of chaos and desperation, of betrayal and fierce, undeniable attraction. It was a kiss that tasted of blood and gunpowder, of broken trust and a binding promise. It was not a gentle kiss, but a demand, a claim, a fusion of two souls irrevocably bound by the darkness they had shared and the impossible choice she had made. Anya responded with equal ferocity, her hands clutching his torn shirt, pulling him closer, surrendering to the dangerous current that had pulled them together. The world outside, with its rules and missions and agencies, ceased to exist. In his arms, amidst the wreckage, she found a strange, terrifying solace. The sirens screamed, growing closer, threatening to shatter their fragile, desperate embrace. The future was uncertain, fraught with danger, with consequences both seen and unseen. She was a ghost, an agent without a mission, a woman who had chosen love over duty. He was a mafia boss, exposed and wounded, his empire in ruins, his heart irrevocably claimed by the woman who saw too much and who had sacrificed everything. They stood together, two broken, dangerous souls, bound by a dark romance that had been forged in fire and betrayal, ready to face whatever came next, together. The ashes of their past would fuel the embers of their dangerous future, a future where the maid who saw too much and the boss who was finally seen would either rise from the ruins or burn together. The story was far from over. It had only just begun. Thanks for watching. If you love the dark romance and thrilling twists, hit like and subscribe. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments.